and I just see part of his tine, and I go, "Oh my gosh, he's coming! It's him. He's 30 yards." I just feel, hey, just almost as loud as I can, and looked right at me, and he was just completely broadside.
Welcome back to another edition of the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast. I'm your host, Matt Drury. My co-host, Tim Chelsvik, he's out today, but I'm going to try to bring the heat with an unbelievable episode with another 230 class deer. So we had Luke on a few episodes ago, and we had the killing 230s and stuff, but we never thought we'd have another 200 caliber deer, a 230 caliber deer that we could get on the podcast. But about a week or so ago, I was looking through social media and I started seeing pictures of a giant deer that was supposedly killed over in Illinois on public ground that was going to gross in the 230 range. So we started talking about it internally, and producer Jordan actually went to high school with the guy. So we started reaching out and we made contact. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Evan Morgeson, who killed a 232 and 7/8 inch buck on public land in Illinois. I think something that a lot of guys dream of. And we're going to go through the story here today. So Evan, what's up, man? How's it going?
Hey, we're starting the day off good. It's the day before Halloween, and we got some cooler weather going in, so I think we're all getting excited here.
That's right. Halloween looks like it's going to be unbelievable. Of course, I won't be able to hunt because I have kids. That's all right.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are struggling to find some time in this work week around Halloween, so it's pretty tough for a lot of people right now.
Absolutely. So, okay, I want to dive into this because I started seeing, I saw a little bit of a blurb on Field and Stream with some of the commentary about this deer, and it just so happens, I was telling you off air, I was at an engagement party for my nephew Nolan this past weekend down in St. Genevieve County, St. Genevieve, Missouri, and one of his best buddies, Jordan Weiler, had some unbelievable velvet footage and photos of this buck. And he was showing me and telling me kind of his side of the story. So apparently he was hunting a piece of property, him and his buddies, right next to this public ground where you were hunting. And they had known this deer really well, but that's not the case for you. So tell us a little bit about how you came to find this deer and hunt it.
Yeah, so it really started actually before season even really came upon here in Illinois. It starts October 1st. And, that week before I was really scrambling. I think a lot of people around that time, typically, you either have deer on your property or you don't, or wherever you're hunting, you generally either have them on camera that time of year or you just don't. They disappear with the acorn drop. So there was a couple pieces that I hunt other than this public piece, and I really didn't have much on some of the trail cameras I run. So decided to hop to another piece, maybe do an observation sit, started doing some e-scouting. I had hunted this property before, or this public piece before, and hunted some different areas. It's a pretty large piece. And I said, it's looking at the 45-day forecast, it's really showing 0 rain for October. And I think they're really going to start keying in on water holes, especially around the rut. Let's kind of do an observation sit around a water hole, and we'll just go from there. I'm not really expecting much tonight. It's the second day of season. It's still pretty warm, but I'd rather just go out there and have a good sit and, just enjoy being outside and out in the good weather. So I just randomly picked the spot on a map with a small water hole and kind of thought, hey, I think some deer might work off some private to that water hole, and we'll just sit around there and see what comes out. I'm not expecting anything out of this. So, I go out there, I set up, I get maybe 5 foot off the ground in a small cedar tree, and maybe 45 minutes before it gets dark, I kind of look around and I see this deer coming. And at that point, I still didn't really have a good idea of what he was. He was pretty far out, and I could see a little trash on the deer. I could tell he had some stickers and stuff, but I really didn't have a clue exactly what he was at that point. And my heart starts racing. I start thinking, okay, he's kind of working my way. I might get a shot here. So that was really my first encounter with this deer, was October 2nd.
October 2nd. And how close did he end up getting?
So he ended up getting about 62 or 63 yards. I generally shoot my bow. I shoot my bow a lot during the summers. I shoot my bow out to about 80 practicing, and I feel pretty comfortable shooting 60 actually. So If they're calm and I feel like I have a good scenario where I think I can make that shot and I feel comfortable shooting, I'll take it. And this is a scenario that I actually did shoot at this deer he was 63, I think I ranged him at. He was quartered away. He was in the wide open. There was no brush or anything around him. He wasn't alert. And I actually took a shot at this deer on October 2nd, which I don't love saying that I missed this deer on October 2nd because I was a former military guy and I was a sniper actually. So I hate to say that I missed the deer.
Well, thank you for your service. I want to say that real quick.
Yeah,
but you got to.
It was a good time, but
if he's calm, you got the angle, and you're proficient with the shot. I understand why you would take that shot, especially on public land. You may never see that deer again.
Yeah, and that was the other thought running through my head was, hey, this might be your only opportunity at this deer. I mean, it's early season. If he is coming to this water source like he is now, that might not last forever. We might get a rain and this deer stays, on private, or he moves it to a totally different piece on a different food source. So, my mind was kind of racing there on whether I should take the shot or not. And I said, if he's calm, if he comes in and he's quartered away, I'm going to take the shot. And I took the shot, obviously missed him that day. He only ran about 15 or 20 yards and he kind of just trotted off, stood there for 2 minutes and just walked off like nothing even happened. So, it was kind of, I'd never seen that before. So
where did the arrow go? Was it low under his belly or?
Looked like it went over him. He did duck a little bit. I don't know if he heard the sound of the bow going off or what was going on there, but he did duck a little bit. Looked like it went over him. So
gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, he probably had no idea what it was. Realistically, had no idea.
Thankfully not. And then I could tell by the way he walked off that he was kind of startled a little bit, but he didn't really know what happened. So he just kind of walked off and it got dark and I got out of my stand, got back to the truck and called some people and said, man, you're not gonna believe this. Like I saw probably 170s deer is what I kind of thought he was. I was like, he's probably 170, maybe a little higher, but he was a good deer. And I can't believe I just went to this random spot and he showed up. So that was my first encounter with this deer and the first time I had seen or even heard anything about it. So yeah, that was my first encounter.
Once that happens, I mean, you got to be thinking, all right, the obsession has to kick in. I got to figure out how to get back in there. What's he doing? Are you allowed to put cameras out over there in public? I assume. Yeah.
So it differentiates between different pieces, but this piece you are allowed to put cameras on public. So
did you end up setting some up, and what's the process then?
Yep. I set one up. I got, I think, maybe 1 or 2 pictures of this deer. It was really sporadic. It would be in the middle of the night. So, and again, it was in the wide open. I was like, I don't really know if he's just coming in between a couple different pieces of private and just skirting this edge. And that's where he's coming through, or if he's coming to this water. I didn't have it set right on the water, which looking back, I kind of wish I would have just to see if he really was coming to that water hole. I never really did see him use it, but I was hunting very close to it. So, very, very well could have been. So I had 1 or 2 pictures of him, but nothing crazy.
So are you hunting out of a climber or what is it that you're using, for your setup?
I am using a Lone Wolf Assault 2, like they're one of the older stands, but I've modified my setup a little bit. I'm not fortunate enough to go out and maybe spend the money on some of the custom gear stuff just yet. I cut my sticks in half, the original Long Wolf stands sticks, and I cut them in half and re-drilled holes and made them into mini sticks and configured them to where they fit the platform a little bit better and just bungee them on there. So I usually only get about, I would say, anywhere from 4 to 8 feet up in a tree. I don't like getting super high. I'm not afraid of heights or anything, but I just feel like, especially for the area that I hunt in Southern Illinois, that most of the vegetation really sticks around that, especially with the Russian olive type of deal, or I guess the bush honeysuckle kind of stuff. It typically sticks around that 6 to 8 foot range. And if you can get just above that, it typically kind of conceals you a little bit better than getting higher usually.
Hey man, that's pretty ingenious. You're taking what you have and you're making it work for the setup you're going to be in. So I applaud you there. That's pretty awesome. So
yeah.
So the 4 to 8 feet part is you're just trying to get a little bit above the height of the bush, the terrain, so you could kind of get a little bit better of a visual. Are you typically eye to eye? Or are you a little bit above? I guess you're a little bit above their eye, their height or whatever. So do you get picked off much at all? Or do you think, hey, they don't really catch me at all?
Typically, I really don't get caught at all. I think actually it kind of seems like the higher you get, the easier it is for them to kind of skylight you. So I normally don't get caught at all unless the wind kind of messes up or something like that. Usually I don't have any eyes on me. So, this area was really wide open though. So I was really concerned about any type of movement kind of exposing me. There wasn't a lot of cover around there. So I was a little more cautious on the type of movement I was doing. If I had more than one deer out there, I really wasn't moving at all. So I was a little cautious about that, but
yeah. So in that scenario, that piece that you're talking, it didn't, I just glanced at, Jordan was showing me a little bit on DeerCast. I just glanced at, it didn't look like there was a ton of trees there to begin with, right? It's pretty open.
No, it's very open. For some of the listeners, it was more of essentially a cattle pasture than anything. It kind of looks like out west. I mean, you can see just as far as the eye can see essentially out there. It's pretty open. There's some autumn olives here and there, some cedars, but I mean, there's no like hardwood, 60-foot cottonwood or, oak tree to set up in. This is like every tree out there is like 15 to 20 foot. Maybe those are the tallest trees out there. And generally the trees out there are ranging from like 10 to 15 for the most part.
Yeah. And so then you're getting it gets tough to even get high if you wanted to get high. They're just not a very large tree to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, you can find some areas like that you can find some like creek bottoms and stuff like that in that area that you can get a little bit higher. And I think that's initially what kind of drew me to that area was, hey, there's probably not going to be a ton of pressure there. Guys are going to look at this on the map and say, it just looks like a cattle pasture. There's nowhere to even set up in there. Let's go to the hardwood stuff on this map and stick to that. So, and I generally see a lot of pressure in there more on the hardwood stuff. So yeah, it's kind of what drew me into that area as well.
Okay. So you get the first opportunity on, what was it, October 2nd?
Yeah. October 2nd, that evening.
When's the next time you find the right conditions to get back in there?
So I actually hunted, I think 3 or 4 sits. I had pretty much the same wind, that whole next week. I get off of work around 3 p.m. So it kind of worked out that my wife was like, hey, you've got, I think 2 weeks where I'm going to put this in here. My wife, I probably owe more than anything to getting this deer, because she was like, hey, you got the next 2 weeks to go and just hunt as much as you can. Like every opportunity you get, just go. We're currently doing IVF. For those that don't know, that's a fertility treatment. So, there's a lot of like shots involved with that. So you kind of have to, pick and choose when you're going to do them. And unfortunately, typically those times are during hunting time. So she's like, hey, we're doing that in 2 weeks. You go hunting as much as you can these next 2 weeks. So
good for her, man. That's awesome.
Pretty much that next week I was in the stand as much as possible, as long as the wind was cooperating. And I think every night I had decent wind where I felt comfortable going in there. I figured, hey, if he's going in between these 2 private pieces and I'm kind of sandwiched in the middle here in this corner, I've got a chance at him coming through here. And I think the wind will work perfect on any of these sits. So I went in, I think 3 or 4 sits and never saw him on any of those evening sits that I went, and was kind of losing a little hope that he maybe moved off. But I got one trail camera picture, I think in the middle of the night, that's just, showed me he was still in the area. So that kind of kept my a little bit of faith in that he was going to show up possibly still.
What was the predominant wind you were having? Was it southerly winds? I assume it's been so hot, or did you get one of those cold stretches?
I kind of had like an east wind actually where I was sitting. So it was kind of like a southeast wind.
Which, based on that piece that you're talking, is probably perfect, because it then blows over to the private side, right?
Yep. That's exactly what I was kind of focusing on. I was like, okay, but it kind of made me nervous, because I was like, well, if he's on bedding on one of these private pieces and coming here in the evening or morning time, I was like, I don't know, depending on which private he's coming from, it could go either way. But I mean, with short little time window that I had, I was kind of like, I'm just going to get in there, and if he shows up, he shows up. I really wasn't. Last year, the previous season, I was chasing probably a mid 180s buck on another public piece actually, and I'd been chasing that deer for 4 years. I actually have that on my YouTube channel. And that deer, like, I was obsessed with that deer. I was all over. I was doing everything I could to get on this deer. And this deer was totally different. I was like, you know what? If he shows up, he shows up. I'm just going to be pretty laid back about it. And if I get an opportunity again, that's awesome. If not, I just move on to the next public piece. I wasn't over the top about this. And I think that's kind of what led to this success on this, was not overthinking it too much. So, yeah.
So did you end up getting footage of this deer?
I got a little cell phone snapshot of this deer walking in that first evening. That's what I got.
Gotcha.
And then again, it was so open, and he was far off that time. I could actually see him coming. I got that little snippet on my phone of him coming in, maybe, I don't know, 80, 90 yards out. And then that's the only piece of footage that I got. I usually do try to film my hunts, but with it being so open, the first evening that I sat, I was trying to get my camera gear set up, and I just even messing around with it. I was like, it's so open in here. I don't even think I'm going to be able to film. So I said, scrap it. Let's just do a observation sit and just kind of enjoy the hunt and be in the moment type of thing. So
yeah, that's the filming aspect of it adds such another element, especially when you're self-filming. Like I don't know. I totally get it when guys are like, I decided not to, and I'm just going to hunt. Especially when you have a world-class deer. Like, I get it. It of course, we're kind of stuck in that mode of we got to film everything. Obviously, that's the profession, but man, does it add a whole other element of being hard to for everything just to come together. And when you're after a big deer like that, you don't need any other little things to kind of trip you up, right? When you're self-filming, it's like, all right, I just need to concentrate on this one thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I totally agree. And even looking back on the day that I actually shot this deer, if I'd have been trying to film it, wouldn't have happened. So
yeah,
apologize there.
That's right. All right. So, okay. You've had 3 or 4 hunts in, and now what kind of conditions do you have leading into the hunt where you actually see him again and have a chance to shoot him?
So leading to the day that I actually got the deer, the night before, I'm looking at the forecast, and I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have a cooler morning. This is the first real nice cool morning that we're going to have. It started to cool off the evening before that. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, it's the middle of the week. I'm going to take off work for this. I think this deer's still going to show up. I think I've got a chance of him possibly showing up in the morning. I'm going to take off work tomorrow morning and just do a morning sit and maybe see if he's coming from a different angle. Maybe he's coming in on a different part of the field, and just do another kind of observations that set up. So I planned the night before, hey, I'm going to wake up early. It's wide open out there. I'm going to get out there super early, get in the stand, and try to avoid spooking this deer off if he's coming back in between 2 different pieces, and just try to get in there as early as possible and get set up before this deer even comes through potentially. So I planned on waking up around 4:30, getting to the area about 5 and getting set up by 5:15 was kind of my plan. Woke up around, I think, like 5:15. My alarm didn't go off. My phone didn't charge that night. So that was a great feeling, waking up startled and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm taking off work. And I just overslept on the morning hunt that I wanted to take off work. That is a huge bummer. So I woke up and kind of debated actually going into work that morning. I was like, am I really going to have enough time getting in there? Am I going to spook this deer off and potentially never see him again going in there? Yeah. Trying to kind of force this hunt. So I make a last minute decision, just throw on your stuff and go out there. Who cares? It's not a huge deal. It's just a deer. If it happens, it happens. I throw on my stuff. I usually wear rubber boots, like knee-high rubber boots. I ended up putting on like these ankle boots that I just had laying there for work. I throw my stuff on. I don't grab any like hoodie or jacket. I have like a light long sleeve on, and I pretty much just run out the door and go to the spot. So I get to the parking lot. And it's a pretty long walk in there. I typically try to avoid walking through the middle of this field. I try to kind of stay along the tree line there, stay kind of concealed and hopefully not spook anything off. And I'm walking in, and there's probably, I don't know, almost knee-high grass there, and it is absolutely just soaked. So I'm getting soaked going in there. It's a cold morning. I'm wearing ankle boots. I get to the spot, and I'm kind of like, why did I do this to myself? I'm going to be freezing in the stand. This is just miserable. I shouldn't have taken off work. I mean, every little negative thought is coming into my head at this point. Yeah. So, not off to a great start in the morning. So you're running a little bit late. By the time you get set up, because you have to hang your set every time, right? So yep. you get in there, you get hung. What time is it by the time you're finally settled and ready to hunt? So it is just breaking daylight at this point that I am sitting in my actual stand. I mean, I barely squeak in there. I didn't spook anything. I didn't hear anything blow. I didn't hear anything take off. So I'm thinking, okay, I made it. I got to the tree. I could barely feel a little light breeze coming on my face. And I was like, okay, I got the same exact wind that I need for this to work. And let's just see what happens here. And so I'm sitting there. It's just breaking daylight. And, 10 or 15 minutes passes into the hunt, and I can hear a farmer yelling at his cows, not far off from where I'm at. I can hear him just screaming at these cattle, hey cows, hey cows. And he's going in to feed his cattle for the morning. And I'm thinking, wow, this is just perfect. The icing on the cake to taking off work and this whole morning hunt thing working out. Ruined. The early October morning hunts are, everybody says not to hunt them, or so you read. And this is exactly why. So, I hear this guy kind of screaming at his cows not far off, and a couple does come rushing through. I think 2 or 3 does came through, and they're kind of trotting through nervously through this little field edge, and they take off. And, I'm kind of like, wow, that might be the morning hunt right there. That might be all I see today is a couple does spooked off from a guy going to feed his cattle for the morning. And this is how my morning's going to go. And 10 minutes goes by, and I see a couple other deer coming through the same area, same trail. I'd already arranged the first group that it came through, around 30-ish yards. And I see a couple more does come in, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's not over. So I see these does come through, and I hadn't picked up my bow at this point at any point in the morning since I got the stand. And I'm thinking, okay, I might want to pick up my bow because he might be behind these deer. He might be getting spooked off these fields and coming in. I want to be ready as fast as they're trotting. So I pick up my bow, and as soon as I touch my bow, I go, I better kind of lean forward and look around this autumn olive bush that's next to me, just in case he's coming around the corner. I want to be able to draw and have a shot at this deer. So I peek my head forward, and I look over, and I just see part of his tine, and I go, oh my gosh, he's coming. It's him. He's 30 yards and he's trotting through. So I draw back, I get a full draw, and he steps into kind of the area that I can shoot. And I start to kind of grunt at him, give him a couple of meh, and he's not stopping for anything. He's hearing this guy, yelling at his cows over in the next field, and this thing's heading for cover and getting to where he feels safe. And I finally realized, hey, you're going to have to yell at this deer if you want a shot at him. So I just yell, hey, just almost as loud as I can, not super loud, but pretty loud for deer hunting. And I yell, hey, and he just stopped on the hoof and looked right at me. And he was just completely broadside. And as soon as it settled on him, I was so calm. I can't believe how calm I was shooting this deer. I just rested the pin there as soon as he stopped and let it fly, and kind of blacked out at that second as soon as the arrow let off. So, that was.
Don't you think some of your, you're a sniper in the service, your training takes hold there a little bit? I know it's totally different things, but I would think that moment of truth, you're used to, being calm, right? I would think. You'd have to tell me.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say because that first encounter, I look back and I see that rack coming my way, and my heart's racing immediately at that point. And, leading up to that 60-ish yard shot that first evening, I was kind of a little nervous shooting on that at that point. But I think just because everything was so rushed at this point, it was just so easy to kind of settle in and say, hey, you just need to get this done. It's now or never type of moment. So it was pretty easy to kind of settle in.
Here's the difference then. The second time, there was no time to think about it. It happened, boom, boom, boom. And I probably muscle memory and training takes over a little bit.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. So I black out as soon as I let go of the release, kind of black out for a second. And I kind of come to as soon as I see the arrow impact, and I could see it's a little bit back, but I could tell, hey, I think I got some ribs there, and I think it might be an okay shot. He hunches up like a cat, turns exactly around the way he just came in, and runs off. And immediately my heart just starts going crazy. It's going off the hook, and I'm like, holy cow, I just shot him, and I think I got him. And I pick up the phone, I look at my phone, and it's like 7:30, 7:32 at this point. And I immediately go, oh my gosh, my wife's getting ready for work right now. So I call her within less than a minute after shooting this deer, and I go, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe it. I got that deer I'm after. And she's like, oh, no way, you got him. And, I'm so happy. Hopefully, you recover it. And, we're having a great phone call. And she's like, send me some text updates. And my phone's on like 4% at this point. Oh boy. So, cause I didn't charge it the night before. Yeah. So get off the phone with her. I'm just kind of sitting in the stand, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I got that deer. And hopefully the recovery goes well. And I get on some blood, and I text a couple family members. Hey, I think I just shot that deer, and, it looked like an okay shot. I'm going to give it some time. And so I just kind of sit there for a while and kind of bask in the moment a little bit, and, let the sun get up a little bit, and just give him some time.
Okay. So how long did you give him then? If you think it might be a touchback, but an okay, decent shot, how long did you give him before you go to look for blood?
So I sat in the stand probably, I would say 30 to 40 minutes before I actually got down. I slowly pack up my things. I put my quiver, I shoot with my quiver off. I know sometimes that's a big debate. Yeah. I shoot quiver off. That's just how I roll. That works for me. Some people shoot quiver on. I shoot quiver off.
Yeah.
I put my quiver back on, pack up my stuff, pack up my stand. I'm putting it, I'm going as slow as possible because I'm so eager to go check out the blood and, see what the arrow looks like and see if it really was a good shot or not. But I'm like, really, really take your time here. It's a good deer. And I slowly pack up my stuff. I get the stand all packed up, and I've got, a big backpack that I usually wear, my stand, my sticks, and then my bow. And I'm like, you know what? Let's really take my time here. And, let's do the shortcut back to, there's a main county road that runs next to this piece. It's a little bit closer than the parking lot is. So I go, let's just walk all my heavy stuff back to this county road. I'll kind of set it along the roadside there in the brush, and I won't have to walk at the 1.5 mile back to the parking lot.
Yeah.
And it'll kind of kill a little bit more time. So by this point, I do one trip to the county road. I drop off, I think at that point, I dropped off my backpack and came back with my bow, and I come back and grab my stand and my sticks, and I start walking back this county road, and I'm thinking, hey, that deer kind of ran this way. I should really start looking for blood as I walk back to this roadway, and I should really be looking for this deer in case, it wasn't a good shot and I don't want to jump him or spook him.
Yeah.
And maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, I start walking and I find just a little piece of lung just sitting there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he did come through here. And it wasn't very far off from where I shot him. And it was kind of around the water source. I'm like, well, he might have came around this water source. So I really didn't even blood trail the deer, essentially. I find this little piece of lung. I could see a little stream of blood going 2 ways. I'm looking left, looking right. And I'm like, I don't know which way he went, or which way he was coming or going, but it's going towards this water source that I'm hunting around. He could have went around this water source, and I'm hoping that he's close. And I maybe took 10 or so steps, and I'm going kind of around there's tall phragmite around all these water sources where I'm hunting. And, anybody that's hunted around phragmite, it's like that stuff gets like 12 foot tall, and it's thick and it's nasty, and it's kind of hard to navigate through. But I'm thinking, he might have laid down around this water source somewhere if he's running towards water. And I took maybe 10 steps, and I could just see his white stomach already there. And I just thought, oh my gosh, he's right here. He didn't go very far at all. He maybe went like 60 yards and just piled up. And so then I'm kind of like, holy cow, I cannot believe this happened. Like, I've already found the deer. I got him. I can't believe it all just came together. So I'm kind of like just dumbfounded that this all even happened. I typically really enjoy blood trail and deer. I love finding the arrow, kind of taking it slow, following the blood trail, seeing how the broadhead and everything worked, how my whole setup worked. But this is like you just stumble upon the deer that you just shot type of thing. I never experienced that.
So after the fact, where did you end up hitting him at? What was it that you hit? Did you get an artery back there, or what was it that you hit? Double lungs?
I hit pretty much the back end of his lungs. I think it hit the second or third rib from the back, and I was shooting a beast broadhead. This is the first time I shot them this year, and pretty impressed by them. They made a great entry hole. The exit went between 2 ribs, and that broadhead is designed to flex inwards on a spring and kind of go around bone essentially. And it did just that. It went between 2 ribs and came out on the other side and passed through. And, it was a pretty good blood trail. And I mean, he piled up, I would say less than 60 to 80 yards, I would say.
Awesome.
So it ended up being an okay shot.
Yeah, I'd say that feeling's, the time between when you shoot one and when you recover one is, even if you feel like you hit them well or not, and it's just a real anxious period where you just don't know.
Yeah.
Until you see it. It's a hard feeling to describe. I mean, anybody that's hunting and listening to this podcast would know what it's like, but man, that period of time there's a lot of nervous energy there until you finally find the deer, and then you can just sigh of relief and exhale, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, especially when you're if you know you made a good shot, it's one thing, and you're like, hey, it's just a matter of time before I go find this deer. If you're kind of second guessing yourself a little bit, it can be just completely daunting for that time period that you're waiting. So yeah, you're definitely right on that one. It can be a real mental game at that point. But yeah, so I walk up, I find him, and immediately I'm like, holy cow, like, I can't believe this came together. This is crazy. I put my hand on his rack and kind of lift him out of the phragmite there for a second. And that's when it kind of comes together. Hey, this deer has a lot more going on than you initially thought, or from any type of 2 trail cam pictures that you have of this deer, because they were kind of blurry.
Yeah.
It was at night. It's around some lakes and stuff, and you don't really get a good picture of them. And I see kind of every angle at this point, and I'm like, whoa, this deer has a lot going on.
This is a giant.
So, yeah. So I get out my phone, get out a tag, immediately put a tag on him, start to call it in. And I think I was writing my confirmation number on my tag, and I got like 2 letters away from the end of the number, the tag number on there. I'm writing it on the tag, and my phone dies.
Oh no.
And at this point, I still hadn't even brought my truck back over to where it's closer. And I'm like, I got to go get my truck. I'm like, okay, leave both the tags on here, leave the deer here, run back to the truck, charge your phone, and come back. So I do that. I bring all my stuff to the truck, bring it closer to where I can get the deer out. And, I get back over, I got my phone on like 10% at this point. I let it charge up a little bit and race back out there, call the number again, get the last like 2 digits of the number, and officially get the tag on him. And then it feels like it really sets in that, okay, he got the deer. Like, he is tagged. Everything's legit. This is awesome. I can't believe this came together. Let's call some people. So I call my dad, give him kind of the update. My dad's like, not a big antler guy. He's more of a meat hunter. He's always been that way. You can't get him out of his ways. He's kind of stuck there, but he likes admiring a big deer every now and then. He's just happy to hear I got one. And he's like, that's awesome that you got it. Send some pictures when you can, and let me know what it looks like and all this stuff. And he's pretty excited. And I call my brother-in-laws, and they're like, hey, how many points does he have? And I'm trying to FaceTime him at this point, and they're like, count the points. I go, okay, I haven't really counted them up yet. And so I start counting one side, and I get to like 15, 16 on one side. And I'm like, hold on, let me count that again. I might have missed one. And I counted again. I'm like, okay, 15, 16. Okay, I think I got them all on that side. And I switch over to the other side, and I start counting that side. And I'm like, 15, 16. And I'm like, I was like 29, 30. And I'm looking around, I'm like 31. And then my father-in-law, I don't know if you've ever heard this song. There's a song called The 30-Point Buck.
Oh, yeah.
And my father-in-law, I feel like that's a big Minnesota, Michigan, that's a up north type
Wisconsin,
of thing. But I've heard it down here. Heard it from my father-in-law. He played it a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, this is a silly song. He goes, oh my God, you got the 30-point buck. And we all just start busting up laughing over FaceTime. So that was a really neat moment to kind of think about and just kind of cherish that. That was pretty funny going through that. And so they're like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I guess I'm going to get him out of here. It's getting pretty warm. It's supposed to get up in the mid 70s or high 70s that day. So I was kind of worried about time frame. I'd already given it a lot of time up to that point just to find him. So I knew the drag out was going to be pretty long as well. So, I go, hey, I'm going to get off the phone here. I'm going to get him drug out and, try to get some ice on him. And they're like, hey, bring him up here. We got somebody that has a walk-in cooler. Just bring him up towards our town, and we'll all meet there. So that was the plan. I probably spent another, I would say hour and a half getting him out. And by the time I got ice on him, it was another hour after that, by the time I got to their hometown. And, I get him up to, my father-in-law's house. I go see him, and I have him in the back of the truck with, ice just piled all over him. And I kind of raise his rack over the tailgate there. And he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, I've never seen anything like this. We're turning in each way, and it's just got points going everywhere. So, we take it, put it in a walk-in cooler, and get it hung up. And, it was around, I think, 2 or 3 around this time. And he says, why don't we just wait until the evening, and we'll get everybody together, the whole family, and everybody meet over at this local bar, and we'll get some bar food, and we'll go look at the deer and score it and everything. So we do that. We wait for everybody to get there. And while we're waiting for, the rest of the family to kind of roll in, we're kind of slowly taking guesses on what we think the deer scores. So I put like mid 170s still at this point. I was like, I think he's got a lot of trash going on, but I think he's not going to score as high as we really think he is. And I think the highest score that we had out of all our family members, I think a lot of people said 180, 190. And then my nephew, before he has even seen this deer, goes, it's over 200. I know for sure it's over 200. So we're kind of laughing about that. And, we go into the walk-in cooler. My whole family sees it. We take a couple family photos with it. So that was pretty neat to just kind of have that memory there of all my family being there. And, everybody just kind of sharing that moment. It was really neat for everybody to come there and kind of look at this deer and appreciate it. So, that's actually probably my favorite part of hunting, is just the camaraderie part of it afterwards. It kind of really felt like, old campfire deer camp type of feel. I had people coming in from the local bar and, a bunch of family friends that came over to see the deer. So it was really cool. Just kind of sit around, just drink a Busch Light and everybody just talk about deer hunting, the story, what they've been seeing for the year. So that's my favorite part of it, is the camaraderie part myself.
No doubt. There was just a quick side note on that topic. Mark and Terry, back when Mark killed his first big deer, I think it was 197 inches. It was in Illinois, and Terry was filming him. This was in the late 90s, and they brought that deer back to Bloomsdale, Missouri, which is where we're all from, and a town of 400 people. And the Dewdrop, which is the famous bar there in Bloomsdale. This is before it was redone. Now it's pretty nice, but back then it was just a dive bar. And the owners of the bar at the time, they were friends of Mark and Terry's, and they let them bring the deer to the bar, and they hung them up in that beer cooler. And there was several Busch Lights drank that night. But to your point, everybody gathered in, everybody came to see it. And at that time, late 90s, you just didn't see a deer that size. But that is the best part. Yeah. That's the best part, man.
Yeah. Well, this is, you know what? I'll give the bar a shout out too. Shout out to Feeney's Bar and Grill, Damonsville, Illinois. Shout out to those guys. Good family, great bar, great crew. If you guys are ever in the Damonsville area, stop by that bar. This walk-in cooler is behind that bar, so
that's cool.
So shout out to that family. Shout out to that family for letting me hold that deer there for the night.
So I got a question for you, and maybe you're about to say this part. So when you kill a deer like this, like we've just seen the Alexander buck, that guy killed the deer, and he lied about it and said it was one place, and it was actually on somebody else's land, and he was trespassing and all this stuff. And so when you get a deer this size, do you think I need to call the DNR? I need to call to make sure everybody knows that this is legitimate, because people are going to question it, inherently going to question whether or not it's legit. Just a deer this size, they're going to question everything about the story you just told me. So does that enter your mind yet? Or are you just in the mode of
immediately?
Hey,
Immediately, I'm thinking, I thought this deer was like maybe mid 170s, maybe 180 with all the extra stuff he had going on. I had no idea what he was going to be. But I still, it's a good deer for any piece, and especially for public. I knew it was a good deer. It definitely crossed my mind. And hey, this, like, no matter where you kill a big deer at, people are going to question it. If you post it online, you post it on your personal page or something like that, you're going to have the negative crew in the background saying, hey, I heard this, or I heard this. So yeah, it definitely crossed my mind. You brought up the CJ Alexander thing. I hate to give that guy any more spotlight than he already has with his name and put more stuff out there about him. But that definitely crossed my mind. Even coming on the podcast, I mean, it really, I debated on actually coming on the podcast or not. No offense to you guys, but he immediately did that after he killed that deer and just put this huge spotlight on himself, which warranted for the things that he did. I mean, his whole, what that guy did is just a piece of crap dirtbag move. But just puts this huge stain on the hunting industry and just hunting, what it's all about. So I really was like, I don't want to be that guy that's just coming on podcasts and trying to seek all this fame and put this negative spotlight out there. And so I really debated what I was going to do. I did call the DNR, called the county game warden for that county, spoke to him, said, hey, I killed pretty big deer. I don't know really what to do because I've never killed one this big. I've never been in this position. It's kind of weird. I don't know if I should even call you or if I need to. We ended up talking for a little bit. He's like, how big is it? And I go, it's 31 points. And he's like, okay, yeah, that's a great deer. And I go, yeah, it's a nice one. And he's like, okay. And he's like, what'd that score? And I go, it's gross scoring, green gross scoring 232 and 7/8. And he's like, wow, I can't believe wow, that's nice. That's awesome. It's so good to hear that. And he's like, I know you do your due diligence. And he's like, and I go, I've got from where I was sitting that first evening, I was like, I sat there every hunt and I was like, I've got the location on my phone for everything. And I was like, I took pictures of when I found it. I took pictures of me, like the blood trail where I found it leading up to that point. I was like, if you need anything, I was like, the blood trail's still here. I was like, let's go down here and I will meet you here and show you where exactly I shot it, where it ran to, where I found it, where I gutted it, the gut pile's still there, where I drug it out at, where I parked my truck, everything. I was like, I will do the whole nine. And, he was just very, very cooperative and very nice about it. And it ended up, I'm glad I called the DNR just because of the backlash that typically when you post a big buck like this usually comes. Fortunately, I will say, when I did finally break the news, I finally put it out there, gave it a couple days because it was just, before I even put it out there, I had people blowing up my phones. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was nuts. I'd send a couple pictures to, some friends that I hunt with, some family members. But I think having it at that local bar, some people snuck in and kind of took some pictures because, I had people in Wisconsin that knew about it before any of my local friends knew about
Hell, old high school friends you haven't heard from are reaching out.
Right. Yeah. Right. People from high school are reaching out to me. So I was like, just post it. I'm like, everybody's starting to find out about it anyway. And I go, I like sharing my deer hunting stuff. Just post it. Let it loose. And, people are going to say what they're going to say. Whether they believe it's on public, whether they think it was a high fence deer because it has this unnatural look to it. Just post it out there. So I let it loose. And fortunately, I've had so many people reach out that have been just nothing but positive things to say. Hey, I was also hunting that deer. I had private landowners that were in the area that had, footage of the deer, trail camera pictures of the deer, people that were also hunting the deer on public that reached out to me. I had one guy told me he probably knows over 50 people that were hunting this deer. So it was pretty wild after it kind of let loose, that the feedback that I got. It was super inviting. And it was really good to see, especially after, like you said, the CJ Alexander thing. I think you see a ton of stuff online typically that's negative. So it's really cool to see the hunting community kind of almost bond over this and be like, hey, this is a true story. This really happened. This guy, this is the working man's type of thing where it all came together and you don't need, the money plays type of thing. So it was nice to see that.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think it's nice to, I told Jason Lurk this, my cousin who killed a 180 in Bloomsdale, and these things just don't happen often. And I said, just one thing I can tell you. Well, I told his brother Justin when they first sent me the picture before they killed it, I said, I can tell you this, you're not the only one hunting it. Everybody in that area has to know about it, because a deer that size, you think about it as a hunter, as this is my deer, this is the deer I'm on, but these suckers, unless he's a super homeboy in the middle of, a big piece of property, he's walking around and more people have pictures of him than you think. So it's good to follow all the steps. You call the game warden, make sure you kind of dotted your I's and crossed your T's there. You hate to think about it like that, but you have to be that way and be legitimate in every single step, so that there's no way that it can be questioned, because there are shitheads that are out there doing things not up to standard, and when you get a big deer, it can bring out the worst in some people. And so, that's good. You went through all the things you should have done and made sure that the local authorities knew exactly, what happened and how.
It almost kind of like, right before I called, I remember being like, if I shot a 130 to 140 8-pointer on public, and, it almost tainted the hunt a little bit, having to have that feel of like guilt, even though you're not doing anything wrong, of being like, I need to do this, or I need to call the game warden. I need to really be careful about what I say online about this, because, people might take it the wrong way. It almost taints it a little bit. Again, it's nice to just see the positive feedback from the community. And, see kind of, I feel like the CJ Alexander buck, when that story first broke, the reason it was so big, not because the deer was just massively huge. I think it gave a lot of like the little guys hope that, hey, you can have 10 acres, or you could be hunting this piece that you never see anything on, and this deer could show up.
Sure.
And it gave a lot of people hope. And to see that be just a totally false story and not real, and that guy just doing the worst stuff you can do deer hunting wise, and trying to, cover it up and make money off of it, was just such a blow to, the guys that really gained a lot of hope off that story. So it was really cool to see this story be legit, be something that, it was going back and forth off of private and going in between some public, but anybody can hunt this piece. Anybody can go there. You can sit down and, just not expect anything to come out, and this deer could walk out. So it was really cool to see the community kind of bond over that and give a little hope back to the deer hunting community.
Well, and I think, there's a lot. I find it interesting because the public land thing, when we've talked about it a little bit on here before, like I don't know what it's like. I've not hunted public, so I can't speak to that side of it. But I know that there's almost become a division. It's like, oh, I'm a public land hunter. Oh, you have private land. And of course, I'm on the private side, whether it's a lease or, the 93 acres that I've scratched and saved for to try to pay for, so it's a different mentality. And it's almost a division that's been put between the two groups. But like, if I was a private land hunter next to this public land, I'd be just as happy for the guy. Would it suck that I didn't kill him? Sure. But I'd just be happy that a cool story happened, whether it was on private or public. And I know the guys that were hunting him on private were thrilled for you because they told me in person a couple of days ago, like, man, this guy seems like a great guy. He was an awesome buck. It is a cool story. It, turned out to be a really neat hunt, so I think that we need more of that, a little less of the division and a little bit more of, hey, that's awesome. A giant deer, a once in a lifetime deer got killed. It doesn't matter where it got killed. Even better, it got killed on public land, because that, like you said, it gives a lot of people hope that, you don't necessarily have to have the 1,000-acre chunk or, 200 acres or whatever it is. There's a lot of good resources in the country to go hunt public. And it sounds like you found a gem there.
Yeah, so I'm going to go into that actually real quick. After I posted it, that was really neat. Within 10 minutes of posting it, I had, private landowners, guys that were hunting on public, reaching out to me, sending some private DMs, sending me their phone numbers and stuff. Hey, I've got pictures of this deer. Come check it out. I'll send you this photo. I'll send you, this video I took of it in the summer, on a bean field over here in this area. And it was really interesting, one, to see how much this deer was really moving during the summer and kind of just out in the open. And then two, just, how many people were hunting the deer. And then three, just really cool to see, again, no huge backlash. No, hey, I'm so mad this guy got it on public and he was really close over here and, we should have got him type of thing. Or, we're just mad that you were hunting, within 300 yards of the boundary or whatever it's going to be. It was just, those guys called me and, hey, we had tons of pictures. It's so cool to see that, you got this deer, and I'm inviting them to go, hey, grab a bush light, come over and see him, lay your hands on it, look at this deer and kind of turn them and have a good time. Let's talk about the story, in person and share a beer. So yeah, there doesn't need to be that division of, it's us versus them. We're all in the same thing together. We all have the same goal in mind of killing a nice deer and, just enjoying time out in the woods. It doesn't have to be this big division of, I'm doing it the right way or they're doing it the right way type of thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy for you, man. I'm glad it turned out the way it did for you. And it's just a once in a lifetime buck. I mean, that's just unbelievable. So that was a green score, 232 and 7/8. You guys end up, because the one thing that's always tough is when you got so much non-typical trash, and I'll ask you about the non-typical side in a minute. What, do you end up going to get it officially scored, or do you even care? This is a giant deer. This is what it is. We scored it a bunch of different times and this is what he is to me. You know what I'm saying?
Even when we're sitting around and that cooler that night and it's leading up to, hey, we're going to score him here in the next half hour or whatever. I didn't care. Again, my favorite part is the camaraderie thing. I like killing a nice buck. I like chasing bigger deer, mature deer. And when I initially picked up my bow for that first time, that's the first sit, that was all I cared about. Do I pick up my bow and is my heart racing? That's all I really care about. The score is another thing. It's nice to know, but I had my brother-in-law both my brother-in-laws score it. One was scoring it and then the other was writing down the numbers and adding everything up. So that was a cool moment to, again, we were guessing beforehand and, my brother-in-law that's got the notepad over there adding everything up. He's like, something's not right. And adds it up again. And he's like, that deer's 170 without any of the extras. And he's like, let me do it one more time. And he adds it up again. And he's like, all right, he's got 60 inches of extras.
Oh my goodness.
And he's like, that deer's 232 and 7/8. He's like, this is nuts. And like the whole, like all of us, I mean, I had family friends and, family in there. We're all like, oh my gosh, this deer broke 200. That is freaking insane. And it still really hasn't set in. I'm like, cool. I know that's a really big buck and, that's awesome to break the 200 mark. And I know a lot of people really spend their whole lifetime trying to hit that mark. And I was excited that everybody else was just kind of sharing the moment with me. As far as getting it officially scored, I did have my taxidermist that I'm going through. He knows someone that scores for Boone and Crockett, and I reached out to him just to kind of have an official score on it and see what I would like to see, like what an official score does and how that matches up to maybe my brother-in-law's skills. I'm not nagging on him. I think he does a great job, but I would like to see how they score and see where it lays. So we'll see. I think I'm going to do the 60-day drying period and go from there. And we'll see what he does. We'll
have to have a follow-up and see how it goes. Regardless, it's a hell of a deer, once in a lifetime. Super happy for you. And man, I just can't imagine. I just can't. And to have because we've had a couple 230s, like I said, this season. It's just that's such a high. It's not 200 and not 215, like 230. Those are unbelievable deer. Common denominator is always that extra trash. And when you have 60 inches of trash or whatever it was you said, I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yep. And this, another thing is this deer's body was incredibly small.
Really?
Like I'm talking looks like a 3.5-year-old. I know some of the private land guys think he's 4.5. Talking to them and seeing some pictures from last year, I still think he's 3.5, maybe 4. I'm sending the front incisors off to actually get him aged and see what he comes back as. So that'll be interesting too, to see exactly how old he is. But his body was unusually small. And I think we weighed it gutted, in that shop. It initially weighed like 135.
Oh.
And when we weighed it and then talking to the bar owner, he said that scale's 15 pounds off. It's 15 pounds lighter than that. So that's how. Yeah, so it was pretty unusual.
Unbelievable. That's the size of a doe.
I know. That's when it first stepped out, I saw its rack, and then I looked down, and I was like, that body on that deer just looks like a small fawn or something. Not a fawn, but a yearling doe or even a 2-year-old doe. It was unbelievable.
Wow, that's crazy. Just a freak. Just a freak. Then freak of nature, literally.
Yeah. Well, and it was nice seeing the photos from last year. That deer definitely put on 100 inches this season.
That's how the other guy that killed the 230, that's what he was saying. It was a 160 inch type deer. That blows my mind that they could put on that much in that amount of time. Like what the hell were they eating that to them?
Yeah.
So we could thank the non-GMO or the GMO the crops around the area probably.
I did ask, I followed Don Higgins a little bit, and, I did ask the private land guy. I said, did you plant the real world beans this year? Maybe that was it. So I don't know. We'll see. That's Don Higgins' company is. So,
yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you had 30 minutes. You're sitting there at work and you gave us an hour. So I really, really appreciate it. And, where can people find you? I know you said you had a YouTube channel and you do some stuff on Instagram. Where can people find you at?
Yeah, so I have all my socials are the same. I have Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and it's at Illinois Public Land. That's it. You can find me there.
That's a good name to have. That's probably a pretty popular search item.
That was my thought process behind it. Maybe people searching for some Illinois Public Land to go hunt, and that would pop up. So we'll see. Before
we depart, do you have any closing thoughts or anything you want to say before we jump off?
I just appreciate you guys having the invite on here. It's really neat to go from watching this podcast, doing my daily drives to work every morning and hopping on here. And it's nice to actually be on here. So it's pretty cool. So thanks for the invite. That's really all I got for you. Well, we appreciate it. And I love having these stories. We've kind of gotten a little niche through the season here. And we've had a gentleman that killed a 211. My cousin killed the 180 on, 130 acres. And then the 230, I think it was 230 that was killed in Missouri. And now we're kind of hitting a niche here that it's enjoyable. And I think the audience is really, especially we have this thing called the Rack Pack over on Facebook, a private Facebook group. So we've had a ton of new people join the Rack Pack, and the comment was all the same. Love hearing the big deer stories of guys that, it's not always just a Mark or a Lee or a Don or somebody like that. It's, it's like you said, it's the average Joe working class guy that, anybody can have a chance. Right. And that's, I think, what it resonates with people, because it's like, hey man, especially this time of year,
anything can happen. I just got to be out there, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, that's what it is. Get your butt in the woods right now, and it could happen. You never know.
All right. Well, I think that on that note, we're gonna put a pin in this one. Like I said, if you haven't joined it yet, go over to the Facebook and type in 100% Wild Rack Pack. You can join the private Facebook group. It's fun, man. People are putting up hero pictures like this one, and we get to talk about it and congratulate each other and kind of see what's happened during the season and what phase they're in. And so, if you want, please join. And in the meantime, if you're out there, it's the end of October as we're filming this. Halloween looks like it's going to be dynamite. Halloween morning, Halloween afternoon, and then even November 1st look to be really, really good. So if you can, try to make some time, get out, be careful, wear a safety harness, and good luck. That's all I got to say.
Yep. Thanks for having me again, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Evan. All right, everybody. That's good. Yep. Put a pin in this episode, and until next time, peace out, shoot your bows, have fun, and good luck out there. Peace.
Take land management to the next level with DeerCast's exclusive virtual rain gauges. Pinpoint accuracy and historical data, all powered by industry-leading ag weather services. DeerCast has the tools to keep you ahead of your game.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast Maps, waypoints, weather, virtual rain gauges, and more. Every tool you need to get ahead of your game.